The classroom was her domain and the students were her eager audience, but when the final bell rang, a different story unfolded, one that would end in bloodshed. Renee Holloway was a respected teacher at Lincoln High School in Atlanta, Georgia. To everyone around her, she was the perfect educator, dedicated, inspiring, and deeply involved in her students' futures. But behind closed doors, Renee was hiding a dark secret that would destroy everything in its path. She built trust, crossing lines that should have never been blurred. What started as mentorship turned into something far more dangerous, something that would drive one of her students to a breaking point. At first, the whispers seemed harmless, just teenage gossip floating through the hallways. But then, Malik Jennings, a promising 16-year-old student, started acting differently. His grades slipped, his once bright demeanor dimmed. Those closest to him sensed something was wrong, but no one could have predicted just how deep the deception ran. Then there was Darius Hall, a star basketball player, another student who had fallen under Renee's influence. When he discovered he wasn't the only one, his anger festered. Betrayal, heartbreak, and humiliation brewed beneath the surface. Until, on the night of March 12th, emotions erupted in the worst possible way. A confrontation, a gunshot, a tragedy that no one could ignore. What led to this shocking moment? And how did a beloved teacher become the center of a crime that rocked an entire community? Stay with us as we uncover the truth, and if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and share, because some stories demand to be heard. Atlanta, Georgia, a city teeming with ambition, where success stories are written every day. From the towering skylines to the echoing halls of Lincoln High School, the streets carried stories, some of triumph, others of tragedy. And in one particular classroom, a dangerous tale was unfolding, one that would shake the foundation of trust between a teacher and her students. Renee Holloway wasn't just any teacher. She was the kind who made students believe in themselves. She knew their struggles, their dreams, their fears, and they trusted her. But some, more than others, found themselves drawn into something far beyond the classroom walls. Malik Jennings was one of them. A 16-year-old with a sharp mind and a relentless drive. He had always been at the top of his class. He had dreams of law school, of making something of himself. But lately he seemed different. His mother noticed the shift first. The late nights, the distracted gaze, the whispers he thought she didn't hear. Something had changed, and she wasn't the only one who saw it. Darius Hall was another. A star athlete, a leader, and a young man with everything going for him. He was supposed to have it all, a college scholarship, a promising future, but then he found out the truth. He wasn't the only one Renee had pulled in. The same promises she had whispered to him, she had given to others. The same stolen moments, the same trust, shattered in an instant. And then there was Jamal Robinson. At 18, he was a senior on the cusp of adulthood, a musician with big dreams. He had always connected with Renee over their shared love of literature, and to him, she had been more than a teacher, she had been a friend. But friendships like these weren't meant to exist. Soon he too would be forced to confront a truth that would send shockwaves through their once close community. As their lives became more entangled, the tension mounted. Suspicion grew, secrets began to leak through the cracks, and on a night that should have been like any other, everything came to a devastating climax. The question remained, how did it all get this far, and what would be left in the aftermath? For months, whispers had circulated about Ms. Holloway being a little too close to some of her students. Most dismissed it as nothing more than gossip, until the night of March 12th, when everything changed. That evening, Malik Jennings' mother, Vanessa, waited for her son to come home after basketball practice. Midnight passed, no text, no calls. By morning, panic set in. Malik was missing. At the same time, a disturbing discovery was made near a secluded lake on the outskirts of town. Malik's backpack, torn open with blood-stained textbooks inside. A few feet away, his phone lay face down in the dirt, its screen shattered. The battery had been removed. The police were called immediately. Officers scoured the area, flashlights cutting through the darkness, searching for any sign of the missing teen. Then, the most unsettling clue yet. A single sneaker, soaked in mud, found partially buried near the lake's edge. Word spread fast. By sunrise, the community was in a frenzy. Parents feared for their children, students whispered in hushed voices, and teachers exchanged worried glances in the hallways of Lincoln High. But one person in particular seemed unusually distressed: Renee Holloway. She arrived at school that morning, visibly shaken, barely able to hold a conversation. When asked if she had seen Malik the night before, she hesitated. Her response was careful and calculated. "He left practice as usual," she said. I don't know anything else." But something in her voice wavered, and for the first time people started asking the question no one had dared to before. What exactly was going on between Renee Holloway and her students? As investigators dug deeper, more shocking details emerged. Call logs showed late-night conversations between Renee and Malik, sometimes lasting hours. Text messages hinted at a relationship that went beyond teacher and student. And then, a crucial break in the case: surveillance footage from a gas station near the lake. The grainy footage showed Malik's car pulling in at 10:47 p.m. Moments later, Renee's car appeared. The two vehicles sat side by side for nearly 10 minutes before driving off in the same direction, toward the secluded lake where his belongings were found. The evidence was mounting, but there was still no sign of Malik. And then, just when it seemed like the case had hit a dead end, a call came in from a hiker in the area. A body had been found. The investigation had just taken a devastating turn, and what would come next would send shockwaves through the entire city of Atlanta. The case had already sent shockwaves through the community, but nothing could prepare investigators for what they were about to uncover. Every new piece of evidence revealed a disturbing truth, a truth that had been hidden in plain sight for far too long. As detectives combed through Renee Holloway's phone records, they discovered hundreds of text messages exchanged between her and the three missing boys: Malik Jennings, Darius Hall, and Jamal Robinson. Some were innocent, simple discussions about school, upcoming assignments, or basketball games, but others revealed something much more unsettling. Late-night conversations, private rendezvous, and messages laced with emotions that went far beyond the boundaries of a teacher-student relationship. Among the most disturbing were a series of texts between Renee and Malik in the weeks leading up to his disappearance. "You can't just ignore me like this, Malik. We need to talk. Don't act like I don't matter. I've been there for you when no one else was. If you say anything, you'll regret it." Malik, it seemed, had started to pull away, and Renee wasn't handling it well. Students at Lincoln High had long suspected that Malik and Ms. Holloway were closer than they should be. He had always been one of her favorites. She gave him special privileges, excused his late assignments, and even let him skip detention when other students weren't so lucky. But in recent weeks, Malik had begun to change. He stopped staying after class. He avoided her in the hallways. And, most telling of all, he had confided in a friend that he wanted out. "She won't let me go," Malik had told his best friend Xavier just a week before he vanished. "I told her it's over, but she keeps texting me, keeps calling. I don't know what to do." He was trapped in a situation no teenager should ever be in. And then, just days later, he was gone. As the investigation continued, authorities searched through Renee Holloway's personal laptop. What they found was deeply unsettling. Hundreds of photos, videos, and messages that painted a picture far worse than anyone had imagined. Not only had she been involved with Malik, but there was clear evidence of relationships with Darius and Jamal as well. 3 students, 3 young men, had unknowingly stepped into a dangerous web. But why? Why was she so obsessed? And more importantly, how far would she go to keep her secrets buried? Then came the breakthrough that changed everything. Jamal Robinson's body had been found. An abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Broken windows, rusted metal doors. A place long forgotten by the city, used only by drifters and lost souls. Inside, a scene of horror. Jamal's body lay sprawled across the cold cement floor, his clothes torn, his hands bruised, his face frozen in a look of terror. He had been shot twice, once in the chest, once in the stomach. Nearby, his phone, screen cracked, buzzing with unread messages, and then evidence that pointed in a single direction. Renee Holloway's fingerprints on the handle of Jamal's car. How did she explain that? Police theorized that Jamal had discovered something he wasn't supposed to. Perhaps he found out about her other relationships. Perhaps he had planned to expose her. Whatever it was, it had cost him his life. As detectives pieced together the puzzle, an even more terrifying realization came to light. Malik and Darius were still missing. And if Jamal's fate was anything to go by, time was running out. Had Renee Holloway killed them too? The investigation was reaching its breaking point, and with each passing hour, pressure mounted. The community demanded answers. Parents feared for their children. The students of Lincoln High no longer saw Renee as the beloved teacher they once admired. She was now a suspect in one of the most horrifying crimes their city had ever seen. And then another lead emerged. Security footage from a parking garage downtown showed Renee on the night of Malik's disappearance. She was standing next to her car, pacing, visibly agitated. She pulled out her phone, dialed a number, and then she got into the vehicle and drove off. Who was she calling, and where was she going? Investigators pulled her phone records again. The last person she contacted that night? Darius Hall. He answered. The call lasted 4 minutes. And then, nothing. No texts, no further calls, no sign of Darius ever again? Was that the moment it all fell apart? Was that the night Renee Holloway ensured her darkest secrets would never come to light? One thing was certain. This case was far from over. The community was holding its breath, waiting for answers. And then, on a quiet Wednesday morning, the news broke. Renee Holloway had been arrested. It happened at her home just before sunrise. Officers arrived with a search warrant, prepared to uncover whatever secrets she had left to hide. In her bedroom closet, they found a .38 caliber handgun, the same caliber used to kill Jamal Robinson. Forensic testing would later confirm the worst. The bullets matched. This was the murder weapon. At the station, Renee was questioned for hours. Her story shifted constantly. At first, she claimed she hadn't seen the boys that night. Then she admitted she met them, but only to talk. Finally, under mounting evidence, she gave a different story. She said the night had gotten out of control. According to Renee, Malik had threatened to expose their relationship. He was tired of the lies, tired of sneaking around. But she insisted she didn't kill him. In her version of events, things escalated, and Jamal was the one who lost control. She said he pulled out a gun, a struggle ensued, and the gun went off. But the evidence told a different story. Gunshot residue was found on Renee's hands. Bloodstains in the trunk of her car matched Malik Jennings' DNA. And then came the most damning discovery. Darius Hall's body was found buried in a shallow grave near a deserted stretch of highway. He had been strangled. Renee Holloway had run out of lies. In court, the prosecution painted a picture of a woman desperate to maintain control, willing to do anything to silence those who threatened to expose her. The jury took less than 3 hours to deliberate. Verdict: guilty. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Lincoln High would never be the same. The once respected teacher had become a name spoken in hushed tones, a reminder of the horrors that had unfolded behind classroom walls. For the families of Malik, Darius, and Jamal, justice had been served, but no sentence could bring back their sons. And for those who had once trusted Renee Holloway, one question remained. Had anyone ever truly known her at all? Angela Brooks was supposed to be a mentor, a guide, a protector. Instead, she exploited her position and took the life of one of her students. But was this a crime of passion, or something even darker? Was this a calculated attempt to cover her tracks, or did fear push her to commit the ultimate betrayal? One thing remains certain: This case left scars on an entire community, and the echoes of its consequences will never fully fade. We often think of schools as safe havens, places of learning and growth. But what happens when the very people entrusted to nurture and educate cross boundaries that should never be crossed? The case of Angela Brooks forces us to confront a disturbing reality. Those we trust the most can sometimes be the ones hiding the deepest secrets. But this case isn't just about Angela Brooks. It's about the broader issue of power dynamics, manipulation, and the vulnerability of young minds. How often do stories like this go unnoticed? How many lives are shattered before the truth comes to light? These are the questions we must continue to ask. Now we turn to you. What do you think? Could this tragedy have been prevented? Were there warning signs that everyone ignored? Should Angela Brooks have faced an even harsher punishment, or was justice served? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. If you found this case as shocking as we did, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps us continue bringing you true crime stories that uncover the shocking secrets hiding in plain sight. And if you have a case you'd like us to cover next, drop it in the comments. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and always question the truth, because sometimes the answers we seek are far more disturbing than we ever imagined.